Hear them knocking at my door. Looking for me, no one's. Don't you know we got players, pushers, gangsters, riders, homies. From the land of the colors, Turner, hustle, active, rolling. Make a player wanna make a flip. Get off your house and make some money quick. Make a player hit him more than 6. At the bottom, how to reminisce.
Dezzy Hollow, welcome to Bullseye. I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Jesse, it's nice to see you and finally meet you. I know we were going back and forth through email, trying to find the right date, and we made it happen. I'm here and I'm excited.
I'm grateful that you made the trip. Anybody out there in Los Angeles, if you hear that record we just heard coming out of a Hyundai Ioniq 5 on Wilshire Boulevard, that's my car. I feel like I don't know anyone with more intentional features on their records than you. Like that song that we just heard has Keek the Sneak. It has G Perico on it. Keek the Sneak, of course, is from the East Bay, from Northern California. Perico is from LA here. You've had, Sugar Free on your records, like all very particular people. Lil Rob, I know is your man.
I'm glad that you pointed that out. Like when I pick out like who I want to reach out to for a feature, I try to be very strategic with it. And I also try to choose artists that influence myself so that when I do make the record, it fits them. Like I'll be able to create something that will be easy for them to say, okay, I could just put my flavor on this idea that you already have birthed. So I just got to do my part and execute the record, So I've been very lucky to work with these artists. It's a dream come true for sure.
Did you have like a page in your notebook with, Corrupt's name on it or whatever, and just like a little list of your dream guests?
Usually what I'll do is I'll have a handful of songs, in a playlist, and then I'll put those into like a project, and I'll start putting names on songs that I feel like artists would fit on, just to speak it into existence, and then I'll slowly start. It's a process, I got to slowly start reaching out to them. And I'm pretty sure it's like they don't get back to you right away. It might take anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 years, and it's crazy. Especially like working with Corrupt. I had, done a handful of shows with Corrupt. I've met him several times and we bumped into each other, had conversations backstage, but I never really took the time to say, hey, I want to make a record with you, because when you force relationships is when it doesn't seem natural. It just came around to me and Corrupt making the record worldwide, and that was a dream come true. But there's a handful of artists that I'm very surprised I've been able to work with that have inspired my music, and Sugar Free's one of them. Little Rob's one of them. Dub C was an experience for sure. So Dub C, much love to Dub C, and there's still a lot of artists that I still want to work with that are in my my checklist. I got to check them off, and I haven't got to them yet.
Who's listed right now?
I think
they might
sure,
listen to NPR.
For sure, Warren G. For sure, Mac 10, Dom Kennedy. There's a lot of artists that I'm a big fan of that I would love to work with, and I'm gonna manifest it and I'm gonna make it happen.
One of the things about you as an artist is that you're from Oceanside, California,
mm-hmm.
which is north of San Diego, pretty well south of LA, closer to San Diego than LA. But,
mm-hmm.
It's not like there's 12 legends from next door. You're not from one of those projects in Queens where everybody on the symphony lived or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Or it's not anybody that has like a way to hold the door for me, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it seems, coming from a small city that is, a good distance away from San Diego, good distance away from LA. It's its own thing. And it's an advantage and a disadvantage for me. Advantage wise is that, I get to be a pioneer at what I'm doing. And there's nobody that like really is influencing my path and my direction. It's really myself. But, disadvantages is, there's several, not having connections or really knowing anybody in the industry. So for me, it's all of like, it's a problem that I'm trying to solve constantly in my head. How am I going to work with this artist, or how am I going to get to this status, and it's all obstacles, you know.
Tell me a little bit about Oceanside. I've never been.
Well, it's definitely a developing, like slowly gentrified city that is definitely attracting a big outlook for like the tourism, and I could see it. They're like tearing down a lot of things that have been there for a very long time. You know, all the historic monuments have been replaced with, you know, 5-star hotels, and everything. The price of just living has gone up. I've lived there my whole life, and you know, I've experienced everything. All my songs that I've written I've written in the city. So to see a lot of the things that I'm talking about in my songs slowly like disappear, it's almost like what I'm writing and what I'm doing is kind of like a journal, and it's kind of like I'm writing things into like a history book with my music.
Put it down for the black and the brown. Polynesian, Asian partners on my side of the town. My city breathing athletes and ballers make it a fame. It used to be a camping ground for the notorious blade. I bring it back then, that's why I made in a mission bazaar. The hoes at high school used to tell me, boy, you think you a star. And now the only chance to get is when they see me from far. And the country boy readjust like the seats on my car. I paved the way for underdogs, I put the front back in. Let's celebrate and have a function, don't get drunk by 10. The homie Christian, but tonight he said he just might sin.
But in Oceanside, it's a big melting pot of different cultures. And I would say the area that I'm from is about 15 minutes from the beach. It's a city where you could be in the tourist beach side, and you go, you know, east, and you get, you know, neighborhoods. And I try to play both sides the best I can, you know, adapting with the changes, and then also speaking about the history of the city.
I got an email from my childhood best friend a few years ago. Like, you got to check out this artist named Malcolm Kenter. And this guy is from the neighborhood that I grew up in, right next to where my friend grew up, the Mission in San Francisco. And he makes miniatures of buildings in our neighborhood. And it's not, you know, the Mission Dolores or whatever. It's like a liquor store. And, you know, there is, of course, an element of like the incredible artistry of his ability to recreate these things. But the reason that it is art more than craft is that those things through our lives have been kind of taken from us by, specifically in that case, by gentrification. You know, the passage of time to some extent, but particularly by gentrification. And there is a special kind of pain in having been in difficult circumstances and losing those things that are special to you and just not being the one that has the power in the situation.
Yeah, I see that a lot, especially like in the city, you know, a lot of places that I used to sit down and write my lyrics at, you know, have been built over. And, you know, it's all about, you know, adapting to what's going on. And right now, with everything going on, like the development downtown of my city, I'm trying to adapt with it. So I'm like trying to figure out ways to like bring an entertainment element to my city. And I'm in the process of launching my very first like festival in the city. With a really nice lineup, and I'm excited because there's not really been like an element of entertainment in the city where I'm from. So to be able to do that is it's like a goal for me.
What are some of the special places from Oceanside from your childhood or adolescence?
I say number one is the Junior Seau Amphitheater, which is where my festival is being thrown, and it's right on the beach. It's the Junior Seau Amphitheater because legendary Junior Seau is born and raised in Oceanside.
He's a legendary football player for the San Diego Chargers.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And he did a lot for the city. He left a big imprint on the city. His legacy of everything from the Junior Seau Foundation to what he did with his talents, you know, has shaped a lot of people. And he's like one of the blueprints that came out of the city where it's like, man, I want to be like him.
Junior Seau was Samoan American, right?
Yeah.
So is there a big Pacific Islander community in Oceanside?
Yeah, so at the Junior Seau Amphitheater, they have what's called the Sister City. It's a Samoan cultural festival that they have at the Junior Seau Amphitheater every year. And it's just like a celebratory like event for the culture and, for its impact on the city and its presence in the city. But there's a big Pacific Islander community in Oceanside, big time. I went to school with like a lot of my buddies were, Samoan, big boys. And, that was like one of the main reasons why I started growing my hair out, hanging out with them. Everybody had long hair. Everybody was doing music. But, what was interesting was a lot of the homies that kicked it with, they're big, they're all, like mean, but they were all in choir. You know what I'm saying? They were singing like angels. Beautiful, beautiful voices, on some Nate Dogg, harmonic, singing about experiences, in the community, but still holding that tough guy, being a tough guy, but still being able to have and express like your talents. That was something that carried on also with my music. I like laying a lot of harmonies in my music, and I had really got that from the people I was hanging around with.
What's your ethnic background?
I'm a mutt, man. I'm a mutt. I'm mixed with a lot, and I get asked that a lot on a lot of interviews. That's like, if you look my name up, the first thing we'll say is what is his ethnicity. But it's for me, it's kind of like I didn't grew up around Samoans, Mexican, African Americans. It's like I got to get the best of all worlds. Living where I live. For me, I kind of gravitate toward just the unity of everybody, especially like in the music. I try not to get too like one-sided. I when I make a song, I think about like something that's universal to all backgrounds. I think that's very important for me and what I stand for, and being from Oceanside.
I mean, that makes sense in the context of what you were saying about Oceanside, which is, you have this place that is your home that you rep so hard, where you are a star. It's also a small city and you don't have a connection outside of it. And when, I think in hip hop particularly, if you're multiracial, people are trying to figure out like but who does he roll with? Like, what's the team?
Right.
Like who's he with?
Yeah. So I would say like that is a big question for a lot of people. They want to know like, you're always going to support like your own. So a lot of people want to know, what is he, so that I can support him or not,
Well, identity is such a huge part of hip hop.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. But just letting the work speak for itself, and more so like what I do, the hustle, just let it show people that it's universal, music and talent, and the work, it speaks for itself, But that's definitely the biggest question I get asked a lot, for sure.
Well, the braids do it. The braids could be anybody. Is they're distinctive?
The braids do it.
The braids. And the hard outline on the facial hair, that does it too.
Oh man, yeah, I just got this cleaned up today, man. This is like my signature, the goatee. I kind of fell in love with it a couple years back.
I think we should hit out the swap meet. Not the swap meet, where they trying to find my fit. We got hustlers in the building trying to make that grip.
Buy two, get the third one free right here, man.
You need it, I could get it, make it stop real quick. At the swap meet, where they make us spend them chips.
There's a track on your new record about the swap meet.
Yeah.
The swap meet is such a Southern California thing. It exists elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I bought a bootleg tape of the Bodyguard soundtrack at the Ashby Flea Market one time. Mm-hmm. In 1992 or whatever that was. But that's different from the kind of swap meet they got down here. Mm. And the swap meet is kind of like the center of everything in a way.
The swap meet has everything you need, anything you want, anything you're trying to find, they'll have it. And, it goes back to like talking about things that have been replaced. Our swap meet was held at the drive-ins that I was saying in my neighborhood that got replaced. But we used to go to the swap meet every Sunday, Saturdays too, but Sundays was the days where everybody was there. They would have food stands, music, and of course, vendors of all sorts, and it was a meetup spot for a lot of my peers. You would see people in there selling the CD, and people selling everything: rims, car supplies,
toothpaste,
burnt CDs,
tube
movies.
socks.
You know what I'm saying? Anything you want, you could find at the swap meet.
Is there a tape or CD that you remember buying there?
The last thing or CD I had bought was a mix. It was like one of those mixes where it has like maybe like a Snoop Dogg song, and then it would have like a Selly Sale song, and then it was like a West Coast mix. That was the last thing I had bought. There was a burnt CD, but that was years ago.
Selly Sale from Northern California.
Yes,
from
sir.
Vallejo, right?
Yeah. Selly Sale, Messy Marv. There was a couple of artists, from the Bay that I used to listen to. The Loonies. I was familiar with Mac Dre, but I wasn't like too familiar with him. Quik. Man, shout out to Quik though. Real big shout out to Quik and everything that he's accomplished. And just, he's a good friend. For sure, a good friend.
I heard some of your older records. I mean, I'm talking about 10-year-old records.
Mm-hmm.
Where you were much more so super rapping on sort of boom bappy, trappy type beats.
Yeah.
A very different sound. How did you end up making your career so deeply invested in funk specifically? And like California funk too, like 80s and G-funk funk.
I try to make it, with substance for sure. But, with funk, the main thing in funk is fun. They're fun records, they're up-tempo. And I really wanted to go forward with that and have that as, what people see me as, because, before I was doing, lyrical hip hop, and it was too saturated, there's too many people doing it. So, I was like, what do I have on other artists that I could really execute that comes secondhand to me? And it was funk. I was a big fan of funk from, the Parliament all the way to when it became G-funk, to P-funk to G-funk. And it's like, I just been a big fan of the sound of the synths, the talk box, the percussions. It was very distinctive, and it was something that the West Coast was known for. And it was like, for me, it was a no-brainer to do something that I knew how to do. I could do it well, and it embodied the West Coast where I'm from. And so I really went serious with it when I released a project called Can You Handle the Funk? That was the first, venture into doing just funk, But before that, I did have one song that actually popped off called EBT Boy.
Held a conversation with some bigger figure on the west side. Said he just cop a whip and he's looking for his next ride. Never been inside a Benz, neither took her for a test drive. And I was thinking about to come up cause I never had the best life down. I'm about to run up your shit. I'm about to run up like Bliss. I be like, damn, I'm about to risk everything. I need your diamonds and rings. I be like, damn, this shit is really too reckless. I need your whip and your necklace. I be like, damn, I'm holding too much aggression. I've lost account of my blessings.
But for me, it was just like, what would I be able to do that really like embodies where I'm from? And the funk was something that I had done before, but I had never like just did funk. I was always kind of just a lyrical artist, but I needed something that really stamped me for what I stood for and where I'm from. And, the funk was it.
Yeah, I mean,
the funk was it.
I don't know to what extent people outside of California, and especially Southern California, understand how kind of unbroken the line is from the late 60s, even through today, right? Because in the broader history of urban music in America, disco is kind of like a hard line where all of your James Brown's careers ended, at least on the radio, because of disco. And that was the end of that. And there were a few artists that hung on, the Gap Band and Rick James into the 80s, but they kind of got wiped off the face of radio anyway by hip hop eventually. Whereas in Southern California, that disjuncture never existed. Artists like, Roger and Zapp and Egyptian Lover and the World Class Wrecking Crew eventually were a continuous line of funk through decades that led directly into, you know, the G-funk sound of the 90s and 2000s. Like there's no, you know, Snoop Dogg making a record with a talk box on it doesn't represent like him reaching deep into the crates. It's a continuation of a thing that was happening for him through his entire life, a thing that had never stopped.
Yeah, man. Every Dre record, almost just about every Dre record has been a flip of like something from that had already been like pretty much a hit. You know, history repeats itself. You hear that a lot, like a lot of samples resurfacing from freestyle or from funk. And then now, you know, with Kendrick and what he's doing, a lot of freestyle songs are being revamped, you know. But history repeats itself. And the funk will never go away. It just gets rebirth. And now I'm doing like a new segment of it, which you couldn't even call it G-Funk because it would be kind of like a dishonor for like real pioneers of G-Funk. So like what I do, you know, it's not really G-Funk, it's not funk, it's like a mix of both, you know?
We be giving it up. We be giving it up. Do my dance when it played that. Getting active but we laid back. My loved ones, we go way back. We got it like I gotta say that. East side, west side, south side to the bill. Run the town, tryna eat on the block for a meal. Come together for the straight. I
just try to stay in my own lane. You know, I don't try to like recreate like the era of the G-Funk. I try to just make a new sound with the elements of what that was made from, which was funk.
It has a purpose too. I mean, like if I looked at your list of dates that you've played in the last 2 years, there would be a lot of car shows, for example, right?
A lot of car shows, yeah.
And when you're at a car show, there is a purpose to that music, right? It is the music that shows off your car stereo. It's the music that can go day to night, right? It's like the music that works at the barbecue that you can also dance to at 11 o'clock at night, you know?
There's definitely an audience to the sound that I make, a very dedicated audience, you know, especially like the lowrider community. Big shout out and much love to the lowrider community for really embracing my music and pushing it also to where it's at now. I get a lot of support from not just the lowrider community, but the Chicano community, all the way down to South America. It's like from there to the Chicano community, like it's a lot of support. It's a lot of support for the funk.
You really have a lot of beautiful videos for your records, and you're an independent artist. How do you make the time and find the money to make really good looking videos for your records when video is so much more expensive to make than music?
You just have to have like a routine as well as a budget, but a routine of like, okay, I'm gonna put this project out at the beginning of the year. Once I put the project out, I'm going to follow that up with maybe 6 visuals, because I shoot a lot of visuals. 6 visuals of the top songs on the project. Hopefully one of those will be big enough for me to get some tour dates. And that's what I do every year. You know, I'll put a project out in January, put 6 videos out, tour, you know, and that's pretty much the goal. You know, you need some really, really good images or a good representation of yourself in order to really make something go further than just the music, you know, because everybody wants to see something right now. But as far as like getting by with like these visuals, it's a lot of resources. There's a lot of relationships. It's a lot of not just myself, but people agreeing to come to the shoots and, you know, bear with me because some of the shoots take long, you know. But all the planning and organizing is myself. You know, I shoot the content, I edit the content. It's a lot.
Do you record yourself?
Yeah, I record myself. You know, in my whole like career, I've always recorded myself. I've gone to several studios, but there's nothing like being in your own place where you're comfortable and you can experiment and try things that you couldn't try at other studios, you know? I spent a lot of time recording myself. I spent a lot of time on records. And I never forced the records. If I start writing a record and it's sounding really good and then I start falling off or my train of thought starts going, I'll stop the session and come back to it, you know. There's certain songs where it took me like 2 months to write because I pieced it out. And there's some songs where it took me like 2 hours to write.
So G-Funk, the sound that I heard on the radio when I was a young teenager,
Mm-hmm.
the G stands for gangsta.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those records are about street stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's party records too that are just about party stuff. But there's a lot of records about street stuff. That's something that I've heard you mostly stay away from on your records. Like a little bit of tipping the hat to including everyone
Mm-hmm.
and no preaching. But it's something that I've heard you stay away from generally. Is that a choice that you feel like you made on purpose?
My thing is that, like growing up with so many different ethnicity backgrounds and, you know, particularly also different like colors of neighborhoods. And for me, it was always like, I always wanted to be an artist. You know, I didn't put myself into a position to be as a tough, you know, like a full-time tough guy. You know, I just want to be an artist. So it's like, you got to pick and choose. You can't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So for me, it was like, you know, I want to be an artist. And a lot of my homies, they understood my decision. And, you know, some people didn't agree with it. But for me, it was like, I'm an artist, you know, and this is what I want to do. And there was nothing really that they were offering me that would benefit or even get me to where I'm at now. So, you know, it was something that I had to make a decision for. And especially like a lot of people, I don't know if they think about it, but like, you know, I've sat down and I'm like, okay, who do I want to be seen as? You know, I definitely want to be a community leader, but I don't want to be somebody that has to put on a role, you know, forever. So it was like, I'll just be myself, you know, be an artist and, you know, never come out stating that I'm from such and such, because, you know, once you do that, you're labeled. You know, you can't do shows in certain places. You can't move how you want to move. And I'm a businessman. Anything that's gonna mess up my business it's not something I want to mess with. You know, business is first, for sure.
I mean, there's been such great tragedies here in Southern California, even relatively recently. I mean, you know, Draco got
Mm-hmm.
murdered backstage at a music festival by dozens of dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy for that stuff to follow you deep into adulthood.
It never goes away. It never goes away. You know, I know a lot of artists OG artists that I've worked with where like I'll tell them, you know, I want to do a shoot here. They're like, no, I can't go there. You know, I just can't, you know, and it's understandable. And for me, it's like, damn, like having those type of binds is like, you know, it's something that it gets a little tricky, you know, and I just, you know, I know what message I want to get through, and it's not to be a full-time gangbanger. You know, my image is just to show you that with a hustle, you could be from anywhere, especially somewhere that has no connections to anybody major, and come out on top. You know, so that's what I preach, is just hard work, and keeping that message is like important to me. Hard work and community is what I stand for.
I think a lot about once when RuPaul was on the show, and RuPaul grew up in pretty rural Georgia in the 70s and 80s. And I asked him, how did you make it through that? You know, were you hiding your identity and who you were? How did you stay safe? And he said, I was always safe because everyone could tell that I only had love. And in the small town in Georgia where he grew up, being black and gay and a drag performer, like he was able to show, and him sitting across the table from me, I could believe it because he's a radiant person.
Mm-hmm.
But like the idea that if he showed enough of his heart, if he showed enough warmth and kindness to others, nobody messed with him. And that's a pretty special thing. And I think sometimes when you're in the neighborhood and you're a kid that does homework, people are like, she does homework. She didn't go to college. We got to look out for her,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. And in a way, I guess, something similar when you like, when you're on your path to like being a business owner, and a lot of your friends or maybe they have different interests or they're okay with the situation they're in. All they could do really is like, root for you or not root for you, but it's like you're gonna do what's best for you. And at some point, especially like getting older, you start to realize what your path is gonna be. And I'm just very familiar and I'm very focused on where I'm going.
Well, Dezzy, I'm sure grateful for your time. It's so nice to get to meet you and loved your records. So glad I got to know them.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you.